Okay, so my previous video showed Windows 10 running on Raspberry Pi and it now runs on an SSD, and we have Ethernet, we have analog audio on the Pi 4, and everything is great. But it also works, this version works exactly the same on the Pi 400. The only difference is that the Pi 400 doesn't have an analog audio jack, so I have to use USB, and my Bose speaker has USB audio built into it, but you can use a cheap USB Soundcard to get audio from it. Because Ethernet is working but Wi-Fi isn't, the only way to get Wi-Fi is either via a mobile phone or using something like this Vonix adapter, which basically converts Wi-Fi to an Ethernet signal. So let's switch over to my Mac, which is running Windows 10, and I'll show you how to set it up. So I'm going to use the same drive as I was using just now. I'm going to clear that off and reinstall it. So I'm going to unplug that from my Pi 400. So you can use a USB stick, and I had decent results from the Samsung bars, but SSD is definitely quicker. SD cards are the slowest of the lot, so you won't get good performance with SD cards. So I've plugged in my drive, and it comes up, because it's got Windows on it already, it's got loads of partitions. So what I'm going to do first of all, just to avoid anything going wrong, is format it with Raspberry Pi Imager. I'm going to click Choose OS, go down to Arrays, choose Storage, and pick my drive, and then hit Write. So I'm clearing off that, ready for Windows. And it will come up with some messages because it will redetect the drive while it's happening, but you don't need to worry about it. So that's all been erased. Let's close that down. So now I'm going to switch over to screen capture. Okay, so let's open up a web browser. And we need to type in WOR Pi 4. Here we go, and home Windows on Raspberry, click on that. Then we need to download the latest version, which is 2.1.1, there you go. And we're going to save that on the desktop. So that's the tool that writes the image to the SSD or the USB stick or the SD card. But also we need Windows. We need a copy of Windows 10, and they're available from here. So you can see this, uup.rg.adcard.net. Click on that link, select type. So we want the insider version, which is the latest version. Select version, and so this version is tested. Obviously, depending on when you watch this video, there might be a newer release. I know this version works, so if you click on that, so ARM64 is the one that will work with the Pi 21370.1. Obviously pick your language. Edition, I always use Windows Home. Select download and choose ISO compiler. And this clickable option comes up, so we'll click on that. We've got an advert there which we can close down. So here we can save that, and we'll save that to the desktop as well. So you can see here it's come up blocked because it could harm your device. So we're going to say keep, and keep anyway. Now let's close down the web browser, we don't need that anymore. So you can see I've got the tool here, and I've got the WOR tool. So if I open this one up, I'm going to copy that into a folder. So I'm going to do a new folder on the desktop. WOR 2.1.1, just so I know which one it is. And I want to copy all these, so Control A and copy them into the folder. Obviously use what you use to unzip. Windows will do its own thing. I've got WinRAR in here, that's why it's come up in that, but it's the same sort of principle. And that program is now all in there, and that's the one that executes it. But we need to create this Windows image first. So I'm going to create a folder, right click and new folder, and I'm going to name it 21370.1 so I know which version it is. Copy this in to that folder. It's very important not to execute that file on the desktop because it can start deleting files, so make sure you do exactly as I do and create a folder so that it's all self-contained. Right click on that and run as administrator, and yes. You'll get some warnings here. Do all this at your own risk, but I have done it several times, as have loads of other people. And you see here, this is new. This didn't used to happen, but it says ISO, so I'm going to hit enter. And this will take some time, so just let it continue until it's all finished, and we'll come back when that's all done. Okay, so that's all finished. You can see it says done at the bottom here. Press any key to exit. And in this folder, we now have a disk image file, and you can see there it's 4.4 gig. So this is the one we need to use with the WOR tool. So we've still got our SSD plugged into the Windows computer, so let's close that down and call up the WOR tool which we downloaded earlier on, this one here, and double click on WOR, and yes. Select your language. So the storage drive, mine is my 60 gig Yukon SSD drive. There you go, that's the one. Obviously make sure you've got the right one. As you can see here, Pi 4, Pi 400. And OK. Hit next. The image file, this is the one we've just created. So we could open that up and we could just drag it in. So it's this one here. And it will check that everything is OK. So let's close this one. You can see which build it is, just hit next. Use the latest package and accept, and next. Use the latest firmware and next, and then next again, and this will install it. So just check that everything is right, check that you're not erasing your main Windows drive. I don't know if it will let you do that, but obviously double check. Hit install and let it do its thing. You will get this coming up where it creates the partitions. Don't worry about that. You can just click on the black part here, the WOR tool will come to the front. So as you can see, this is writing Windows now, 18% to the Yukon drive, which is plugged in. Okay, so it's just finishing up. Installing the drivers, 88%. Installing the boot files. Okay, so the install is completed, so we can close that down now, hit finish. Close down all these partitions. And I don't need Windows anymore, so I'm going to shut that down. So now that's all shut down, I can unplug that. That's just the HDMI for the screen capture. Plug my mouse into my Pi 400. So let's plug my mouse in, and so my SSD is going to go into one of the USB 3 sockets. The last time I did this with my Pi 4, not my Pi 400, so I'm going to see if this method works with this. Get rid of my mess of cables I need for my screen capture, and let's switch on. So on the Pi 400 it's F10, and press escape as soon as the screen comes on. Here we go, and you should get this menu. I'll switch back into screen capture now. So we need to use the cursors on the keyboard to go down to Device Manager, Raspberry Pi Configuration, Display Configuration, and we're going to go down to 720, check that and uncheck Native Resolution. Hit Escape, go to Advanced Configuration, limit RAM to 3 gig, press Return, and select Disabled and Return. So that's going to use all 4 gig on the Pi 400. So keep pressing Escape, press Y to save, Escape again, go down to Continue, and then Enter to reset. And then we just let it do its thing. And if all's gone well, you should end up with this screen. So just basically start up Windows as normal. So click yes for your country, pick your keyboard layout and accept the license. And I'll log in with my Microsoft account. So it's all up and running, and it runs at a faster rate than the Raspberry Pi 4 by default because you're looking at 1.8 gigahertz as opposed to 1.5 on the Raspberry Pi 4. So if I go into performance, yeah, so you can see 1.8, but only 4 gig of RAM, whereas I had 8 gig of RAM before on my Pi 4 in the previous video. So I like to shut a few things down from the startup menu. So if I type in startup, you can see that it comes up with startup apps. And this is a pretty decent feature of Windows. Well, they've just changed the way they do it, but it shows up much more clearly now. So if I want to turn everything off, I can, and so there's less impacting the startup of the Pi. But it's also worth typing performance, and adjust the appearance and performance of Windows, and just go for adjust for best performance. Click apply and then click OK. So now it should run a bit quicker. Someone had said in a previous comment that updates weren't manageable. I thought they were manageable in Home, because they certainly have been before. So if I go to Windows Update Settings, yeah, so I can pause, and then we've got advanced options. So I can pause updates until 13th of May. So maybe you can do them longer with Pro, but that's enough for me. That's fine for testing it out. Now let's have a look at WOR CP, and in my previous video I wasn't right clicking and running it as administrator, so if I now right click and then run as administrator and say yes, and if we go to settings, I'm now going to try, what's the highest on this? 2.3. I'm going to go for 2.1 on my Pi 400 and apply the changes. So settings save, please reboot. So it did work fine that time. I'm going to actually shut it down, because I have noticed that if you plug in a USB device and eject it, it crashes the system. Even if you right click and eject it, the moment you take out that USB device, it comes up with an error. So I'm going to shut it down and then restart it without the USB stick in, because I want to plug in my USB Soundcard or speaker. So I can now unplug my little USB adapter and plug in, this is a USB A to micro USB cable. And this is what this Bose speaker uses, because the Bose speaker has like a USB Soundcard built in, I guess would be one way of explaining it, which is quite handy for a computer, because it means that it's always powered by the computer as well, so it's charging up. So if I switch that on, 60%. But I also can use one of these, which is USB with a microphone and a headphone socket in it. There's loads of different things like this, and most of them seem to work for the Pi 400. You don't need it for the Pi 4, because the headphone jack is supported now on the Pi 4. So let's boot that up. Okay, so you can see the overclockers work perfectly, because it's running at 2.1 gigahertz. And just to show that my speaker is working, if I unpause that, it is running at 720 at the moment. Let's go full screen. Taking its time to go full screen. There you go. Okay, so I hope this helps. Thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe.